believe we're all aware of existing technologies we use today to consolidate information from many, many different sources in the safe city to a unified viewing and command and control center. The challenge today to command and control centers is enriching operational efficiency while maintaining order and business continuity. In other words, with the huge amount of information that needs to be gathered today to command and control centers, the real challenge is in the ability to focus on real security and safety threats and how to contain them. And in my presentation today, I will share with you a few use cases which share those innovative concepts together with some advanced operational procedures which can create those operational efficiencies. So if we look at the evolution of the safe city market in the last few decades, it started with some core security elements like some means of access control, some means of video surveillance, intrusion detection, which were all on standalone basis. In the last decade or so, a command and control layer, or what some people would call a situational awareness centers, was added upon on those standalone systems, where the situational awareness centers consolidates information from all those standalone systems into one unified alert and response center. In the last few years, we see an increasing usage of video analytics in safe cities. And I believe we're all aware of how video analytics can improve efficiencies and performance of situational awareness centers when it performs well. However, when it comes to video analytics, there are a lot of different aspects that can affect its performance, and there will be sometimes a little more work. So in order to take the safe city market to the next level, we believe that there is a need for two additional layers on top of the existing command and control situational awareness centers. The first has to do with adding additional sources of information. And in my presentation today, I will show you three use cases which illustrates those advanced concepts, and those use cases are related to adding additional sources of information in order to enhance performance and efficiencies. And with those additional sources of information, we will be able to have a much better insight on what's happening in our cities. The usage of additional sources of information, as well as collaboration between different agencies, is a major building block, if not a must, in today's situational awareness centers or safe cities in general. And even today, when the collaboration between agencies in many countries is in fairly early stages, we believe that there's still a lot that can be done, as I will show. The second layer has to do with advanced operational procedures and other operational aspects in situational awareness centers. One major operational aspect has to do with the ability to preset a situational awareness center to alert and respond to almost any incident in a city. And once a response is taking place, it has to be with minimal human consideration and intervention in order to reduce as much as possible the risk for human error. And once a response is happening and the operator needs to get involved, a simple, intuitive, and minimalistic user interface is key in reaching efficiencies. Another major operational aspect has to do with the system's ability to dispatch the most closest and relevant security forces to an incident in the city in the fastest possible way, in the ability to track them wherever they are in order to help them, to direct them to an incident, and in the ability to communicate with them, to send and receive from them information so they can best address an incident. I'm going over to three use cases now, okay, which illustrates those concepts, and the first has to do with securing an event. In this case, by adding additional sources of information, as well as mobile network information. In this case, I'm showing a football match or a soccer field, a stadium, which contains tens of thousands of systems, but this use case can apply to any type of event which has mass amount of people with tens of thousands of people. When we look at the security solutions today in stadiums, or in general in events, we may see some means of access control, we may see some means of video surveillance, maybe in some cases some panic buttons which will allow the crowd to alert the security forces in case violence or something is happening. But when it comes to trying to identify a threat or someone within such a mass amount of people, it's almost impossible. And what I'll show you today is how by interfacing to external databases as well as using mobile network information, we could get a good indication about threats and we could easily identify a person within a stadium. So the use case goes like that. Every person which is entering into a massive event or to a stadium is very slow. I'll continue in the meantime. So every person which is entering into a stadium, his mobile number as well as other unique mobile identifier will be captured by our system, which can be easily deployed in any type of entrance to a stadium or to a mass event. In addition to that, while he's entering into the event, we capture his face. We take a picture of his face and we correlate it, we associate it with those unique mobile identifiers. This is not face recognition, it has no biometric measures, it's just a face capture, but when it comes to trying to identify someone in a mass crowd, it can become very useful. We can then check the unique mobile identifiers against external databases. When I'm talking about external databases, it could be criminal records, it could be past violence, it could be any type of blacklist and so on. We can get an indication whether we need to further question this person, we need to arrest him, or we need to prevent his entrance into the event. The big problem with interfacing to external databases is the response time. We cannot afford that everyone that is coming into a stadium that will have to wait until we get a response whether it's good to go into the event or not, because then it will take forever, and most people will miss the event, so we miss the point. And in most cases, once we receive any type of feedback, the person will be way into the stadium or into the event, and then to find them with today's technologies is almost impossible. So in case we've received an indication that someone is a suspect and we need to further question him or arrest him or take him out of the event, excuse me. By using our unique mobile identifiers as well as tactical location capability, we could find this person's location with very good proximity within a large event. With the unique mobile identifiers as well as tactical location-based capabilities. And once we locate it within a large event, the cameras of the video surveillance that will be in such an event, in case they are, will be automatically directed to this area. And by the way, this is, whether he's standing still or whether he's moving around, okay, the ability to track those mobile identifiers has no significant, there's no significance whether he's standing still or not. And the security forces that will be dispatched to identify this person, so we have the cameras which are directed to this area that I showed you before, the small yellow area, okay, to start monitoring, to try to identify this person. And the security forces that will be dispatched to intercept this person will have his face capture in his mobile, in their mobile sets in order to try and locate him as fast as possible and arrest him. Yeah. It's going okay now. It's going okay now. So that was the first use case, which shows how by interfacing to external databases, as I mentioned, criminal records, past violence, and so on, as well as extracting unique mobile identifiers for every person which is coming into the stadium, how we can enhance security in such a case in an event. And by the way, this is also a good example of a collaboration between different agencies, because the external databases will usually be in the possession of different organizations. The mobile identifiers, the unique mobile identifiers will be captured by the security forces in the stadium. So that's, again, a good way of collaboration. The second use case has to do with social network information, or what we call, in this case, web intelligence. And I think we could...
Yes, I think 2 minutes.
I think we could all agree that we're going to have to skip them one case, but it is what it is. So I think we could all agree that, social networking is today the main communicating tool in the world, and definitely in ages which range between teenage all the way up to 40, 50 years old, and for them it's probably going to be the main communicating tool. This case is related to Venezuela. It's coming from Venezuela and is related to riots that happened over there earlier this year. In this case, there was a known tension between two of the main political parties in Venezuela, but the authorities had no information whatsoever about the intentions of the opposition and who's behind those intentions. In order to try and find out those intentions, they used our web intelligence application, and they have inserted to this web intelligence application keywords, okay, in order to try to find out what the intentions of the opposition are, because they could not find anything else anywhere else. And once they have inserted those keywords into our web intelligence solution, which, by the way, could be anything related to the opposition, whether it's riot, protest, Caracas, the capital, and so on, they came up with two important pieces of information that was valuable for their investigation. One is the identity of the authors in messages which were related to the keywords coming from the opposition. And the other is the most common names that appeared in the content of those messages. This, by the way, is all public information, available to all. We're not doing here any type of interception or any type of anything that is violating the law. All we're doing is gathering information from the public domain in a more sophisticated way. So they found out those names. Some of them were common, like the name of the president, obviously political parties and clashes and so on, and one name which was very uncommon but appeared many, many times, both as an author of messages and as well as in the content of the messages, is a guy named Juan Requesens. And due to the fact that he appeared so many times, we've decided to filter out his information, and once we filtered out his information, we found out all his messages, all his contact lists, and most importantly, all his subject matters in Twitter. And it appears that in this case, all those subject matter discussions were the most relevant interaction happening by the opposition in order to plan the riots and all the disorders, dates, time, contact lists, and whatever. And once we had filtered this information and we analyzed it, we had exposed all the opposition's intention. Riots happened, they were violent, but the fact that the police knew about those planned riots allowed them to minimize damage significantly. One more important tool that we have is the ability to map the interaction in social media. So if you filter out through keywords a matter subject that you want to investigate and you get a good mapping of who is behind that, who is the center of communication, and actually looking at that in such a visual way helps you to understand who you need to neutralize in order to either disrupt or prevent an event, and this is exactly the intention of this capability. The third pattern, the third use case has to do with pattern analysis. I'll try to make it quick, thank you. I'll try to do it quick, thank you. And this is coming from a license plate and car type recognition system deployed in all main entrance of a city in a Western European country. And in this case, by the way, I didn't mention, coming back to the old, the previous use case, this is again a use case of using social media in order to prevent disorder. So in this case, the police in the country knew about 3 planned deliveries of drugs, large amounts of drugs, to the city in 3 different days, which I called here D1, D2, and D3. They also knew that it's going to happen with vehicles. In this city specifically, it could have happened by sea, it could have happened by the air. They knew about vehicles, but they had no additional information. No license plate, no car type, and nothing. So they have decided, obviously the license plate and vehicle identification system gathered information from all the entrances for quite a few months, and in a certain stage, the police have decided to apply some of our pattern analysis algorithms on this information and came up with the following pattern, which led them to believe that it is related to this drug smuggling. And the pattern goes like that. Every day, in the morning, between 8 and 9, 3 cars, all the black Mercedeses, left the city through the same LPR camera in the same time. A few hours later, the 3 Mercedeses, black Mercedeses, came back to the city through the same LPR camera, more or less in the same time, but this time was a Volvo truck. A few hours later, all those 4 vehicles are leaving the city, and a few hours later, only the 3 Mercedeses are coming back into the city. That to itself does not necessarily have to indicate about anything, apart of the fact that this pattern was identified 3 times in the exact same dates that the police knew about the drug deliveries. So they've preset the system to alert in the next time such a pattern is identified. And indeed, a few months later, those 3 Mercedeses were detected leaving the city. The police dispatched forces in order to intercept, waiting for obviously the drug delivery to come back to the city. And indeed, it came back after a few hours, and they caught a large amount of drugs in the Volvo truck. So this is a successful use case of preventing drug smuggling into a city by pattern analysis. One of the fatal mistakes that the drug smugglers did here, probably because they like Mercedes' black ones very much, they never changed the cars, that eased the ability to identify this pattern. So I talked about the first layer of adding additional sources of information. It's going to be really quick.
No,
the second layer,
I would like you to actually take 5 seconds more to just finish off so that we can actually have the next speaker.
I have still a lot to share with you. We have a booth here, and we'll be very happy to host you in our booth and to allow you to get a bit more information about our cases, about our operational aspects, and about Verint in general. Thank you very much for your